Excellency Baba Raila Amolo Odinga, Senator Mazayo, all youthful leaders in here, I greet you all. Good morning. So my name is Rachel Tabitha, a national youth leader and the executive director for YALA. I'll read you briefly through the background of YALA, all right? I know you know what YALA is all about, but I'd like to bring all of us on the same page. So Young African Leaders Organization was founded in the year 2020 by one vibrant national youth leader, Ms. Rachel Tabitha, with an aim of educating young people on the significance of actively participating in leadership roles and aspiring to become leaders in various sectors of society. The organization is focused on empowering younger generation to embrace leadership positions and make a positive impact on the African communities and the continent as a whole. Governed by its constitution and set goals, YALA seeks to bridge the knowledge and skills gap among the youth by providing training, mentorship, and conferences, and it aims to equip young individuals with the necessary tools and knowledge to effectively lead and contribute to the development of their communities, as well create a supportive and nurturing environment for the youth to learn, grow, and to thrive. YALA operates with a national secretariat, a national board of youthful members, and the 47 county coordinators. And so far, we have 5 country coordinators from Congo, Nigeria, South Sudan, Tanzania, Uganda, with an aim of reaching more African countries to promote Pan-Africanism and ensure Africa takes a global stage on matters developments, good governance, economy, democracy, and youth leadership. In conclusion, a few weeks ago, YALA sought audience with His Excellency Engineer Dr. Raila Amolo Odinga through Mr. Edward Keta Onyango to have a detailed conversation of Kenya's democracy, which is currently at risk. We recognize Baba as the father of democracy in Kenya. By one, briefly, advocated for the introduction of multi-party democracy in Kenya. 2, he formed strategic... Thank you. So, why we recognize Baba as the father of democracy? Number 1, he advocated for the introduction of multi-party democracy in Kenya. Number 2, he formed strategic alliances and political coalitions to challenge the ruling regime then. Number 3, he mobilized support for the opposition in the year 2002 general elections, leading to the end of KANU's long-standing rule. Number 4, continuously pushed for electoral reforms to enhance transparency and accountability in the electoral process. Number 5, actively participated in the drafting and promoting of the 2020 Constitution of Kenya, which introduced significant democratic reforms. 6, promoted the expansion of political rights, such as freedom of speech that we all enjoy today, assembly, as we are here today. Thank you. And association. 7, actively defended civil liberties, including media freedom and the protection of human rights. 8, engaged in peaceful protest and demonstrations to push for democratic reforms. It's okay. 9, and second last, played a vital role in negotiating and mediating political conflicts, aiming to ensure democratic processes and solutions. Number 10, and the last, but that is not the last actually, you could get a lot of it. But number 10 for today, contributed to the strengthening of democratic institutions and the rule of law through its advocacy and engagement in the political arena. These reasons plus many others illustrate how Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga has played a pivotal role in shaping Kenya's democracy landscape and establishing himself as a prominent figure in the fight of democracy in this country. Now, while upstanding all of us, allow me to welcome His Excellency Engineer Enigma of politics, Baba himself, Baba Raila Amolo Odinga.
Hello? Vijana hoi! Vijana hoi! Welcome. You may be seated. Now, this Tabitha here is like my granddaughter and daughter at the same time. Some people did not know him, only knew him in uniforms, because he was one of our combat soldiers during the demonstrations. So this is MDD. And she actually excelled herself. She is somebody who is very determined, dedicated, and very, very courageous indeed. That's why when she told me that the youth wanted to have an audience with me, how could I say no? I cannot say no to Tabitha. But you know, in an earlier incarnation, we were called the Young Turks. We were the youth, like you people. When we started, we were the youth at that time. So we were called the Young Turks. And we were 5 of us. Paul Mite, James Orengo, Professor Nyang Nyongo, and Joager, and yours truly. Today you're now old Turks. Today you're old Turks. So life is like a stream. The river is flowing from the mountain and the water flows and gets to the ocean. Others are coming. So you see, you guys are somewhere in that process of that journey. We are somewhere here nearing the ocean. But it continues. I say that the old were also young. Because I say youth is a transient status. Okay? The difference between the old and the young is just very simple. That the old have at one time been young also. They've been youth before. So they know what it means to be a youth and also know what it means to be old. But the young do not know what it means to be old because they have never been old. They have never been old. So the difference between the old and the young is what is called experience. Experience. You see somebody doing something, you see he's making a mistake, but let him learn from his mistake. Because they say, I wish I could advise him not to do what he's trying to do right now. But that is how the way of nature. Now, I have listened very carefully to what Tabitha said about the youth YALA. And we are here today, once again, at a crossroads as a country. They say the more things change, the more they remain. Yes. See, the Kenya as a country was founded in 1963 after a very long heroic struggle of the people of Kenya. I happened to have been present as a youth witnessing the struggle. And I saw how the older ones, who are older than us, we were young people, babies actually, how they were struggling, how the youth were being arrested, how the youth were being imprisoned. It was a very fierce battle. And it was across the whole country. Those youth who fought at that time now, most of them are either dead or are now very old. So Kenya then attained independence, and everybody was so happy. I happened myself to be out of the country at that time studying, but I remember us standing there there's a time differential of 2 hours between Kenya and where we were. But it was exactly at midnight when the Kenyans assembled at what is called Uhuru Gardens. And then the Union Jack was lowered and the Kenyan flag was hoisted. Kenya became independent in 1963, December. So Kenyan people were very, very optimistic. So the most optimistic people in the world. You have now conquered. You have a new flag. You have now a new nation. And we then had a fairly democratic constitution that separated powers. So you had the legislature, you had the executive, you had the judiciary. So you had a prime minister. At that time, Kenya was independent but not a republic. The head of state was the Queen of England and government. Then we had also a devolved system of government called Majimbo. Kenya was divided into 7 Majimbos, with Nairobi being designated as an extraterritorial county. These Majimbos were headed by presidents. Then now, what happened was when they were now writing the Republican Constitution, when Kenya was becoming a republic 1 year later, that is where things started going wrong. They now created a president out of a prime minister who was now both head of state and head of government. So the president is one time a head of state living in State House. At the same time, he's also the head of government. And then the then prime minister was graduated from being a prime minister and becoming an executive president without going for any elections. That was in 1964. 64. Thereafter, then they started the process of constitutional amendments. If you look at those constitutional amendments, they're altogether nearly 33 different amendments. And all of them had basically the intention of removing power from the periphery to the center. So you ended up creating a very powerful center, a president, in the name of president. The president was above the law, could not be prosecuted. And so the presidency emasculated all other institutions of governance that time. You find that the Majimbos, the Majimbo was done away with, an amendment, so that they removed Majimbo and created a unitary system of government. Then they also to remove the Senate. It was a bicameral house, Senate and the National Assembly. Senate was dissolved and created just only a National Assembly, which is called the Parliament. Then they used to have regional assemblies. Regional assemblies were also dissolved. Ended up also called local government authorities. And they created a very powerful ministry called Minister for Local Government, who was an executive minister, but sitting here in Nairobi. So those assemblies basically were powerless. And then, on the other hand, they came up with a law that controlled the media. So the media itself was muzzled, could not speak. And then they also introduced what they call Preservation of Public Order Act. that allowed the government to arrest and detain anybody without any trial. If you are seen as a political dissident, you'd be arrested and you'd be sent to detention. And you'll be held in detention at the pleasure of the president. Some people spent 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. Others spent up to 10 years in detention. They just arrest you. They take you to a police station. From there, you are taken to some room somewhere. And then an order is brought to you, a detention order signed by the minister in charge of internal security, that you have been found to have engaged in subversive activities against the Republic of Kenya. Therefore, your detention has become necessary. So you are picked up and taken. They will take you to different places. I spent years in community prison, Shimulatewa, Naivasha, Manyani, and so on. Yeah. So this is what was happening. And that went on for a long time. Until then they again came up, the Kenya was a multi-party system at independence. In 1969, they banned the only opposition party. Remained as a single party de jure up to 1981. 1981, when we wanted to form a political party, they moved to parliament and brought an amendment to the constitution, the infamous Section 2A, which made the country a de jure single party dictatorship. That's where now the Mama and Baba started. So Mama and Baba means KANU was the only political party. You could not join any other party, and if you want to be allowed to run for any position, you have to get clearance from the KANU officials. If you're not cleared, you are not allowed to run. So that is where Mama na Baba came from. Mtukufu Rais. So people now started praising the president. You go to a rally, you hear, Mtukufu Rais, juu zaidi. That was the order of the day. Until now we decided to move again to form a pressure group called FORD. And we said we were going to, before we formed FORD, we had said that we were going to have, because they said that Kenya was not ready for multipartyism. Multipartyism will breed ethnicity. So you need a strong national party, which is KANU. So we said that, Kenya is ready for multipartyism. And if you are doubting it, you want to go to Kamkunji and ask the people of Kenya if they are ready for multipartyism. Kenneth Matiba and Charles Rubia made the statement, and I joined them. And we decided that we are going to have a rally at Kamkunji on the 7th of July, 1990. 1390. 7th of July. That's what became known as Saba Saba, 1990. So we were mobilizing. Matiba was mobilizing matatus to get people to come to Kamkunji. I was mobilizing through the Gor Mahia group and Blue Union to get people to come to Kamkunji. On the 2nd of July, Matiba and Rubia were arrested. On the 4th of July, yours truly was arrested. And they were taken to detention. But when Wananchi turned up to Kamkunji, and fought the police. And many people were shot and killed at that time. Over 50 people were shot and killed that time. You are fortunate to have also witnessed a similar killing recently. But you need to know that it happened in 1990, in July. But the Kenyan spirit did not die. Matiba went there, got a stroke, came out limping, was flown to London, but his life was completely undermined. Charles Obeah came out there, he nearly lost his throat. He had gone surgery in detention. I am the one who came out strong. So we moved on. Later on, we formed a pressure group called FORD, Forum for Restoration of Democracy in Kenya. Now we are now the Young Turks. Now we have been joined by the group I mentioned to you. And we fought as the Young Turks until eventually when we brought in the older generation, Jaramogi, Shikuku, Muliro, Ndenge, Bamaris, and so on. So we formed FORD. And FORD now fought until eventually they came now the Kamkunji 2, which you now will be seeing pictures on the top of the trucks. That is not in Sabasaba. That was now 1991. But Sabasaba was that was October 1991. But Sabasaba was in July 1990. But by 1991, I had been whisked out of the country because they were looking for me again to pick me up for the 4th time. And I escaped town and ended up in Norway in exile. I'm just giving you this story to give you a summary of how the struggle was. Then we now eventually managed to get them to allow multi-party. And we formed FORD. Of course, eventually FORD split because of ethnic politics, cheap ethnic politics. And we went into elections divided. We split the votes because we have 3 parties in the opposition. Moi slipped through. With 34% of the votes, he beat us. We got the 66%, but we lost. Then now we moved again and we fought in Parliament. We insisted that reforms must be introduced because we were having multi-party under the old constitution. The structures were all still very single party. One time we staged a protest in Parliament on the budget day. When Moi was there, we stood up, all of us, and we were shouting, "No reforms, no budget. No reforms, no budget." The then Minister for Finance, Mr. Mutusale Mudavadi, could not read the budget properly. In the end, that is what led to what was called the IPPG, Interparliamentary interparliamentary group that came up with the minimum amendment to the Constitution. But then eventually it took a longer time until eventually we now came up with a new Constitution. This new Constitution, of course, I moved the motion in Parliament to set up a select committee to spearhead the process of constitution review, which was passed, and I became the chairman of that committee, and we started the process of constitutional review, ending up with a new constitution. I'm the one who appointed Yashpal Gai as the chairman of the Constitution Review Commission and appointed all those commissioners. So then, when we were in Bomas, Kenyans came from all parts of the country to discuss the Kenya we want. And views emerged at Bomas. People came from each and every district. There were 3 representatives. One must be an opposite gender. That's how we structured it. And we spent months at Bomas of Kenya and came up with what considered the will of the people of Kenya. Because first they started by more public education of the people of Kenya. What is a constitution? How does it affect you? How can you benefit from a good constitution? So there are these public forums which were held, chaired by Professor Gai and his team, across the country. It is one that actually opened up the eyes of the people of Kenya. That's why Kenyans are the most conscious people who understand what a constitution is about. Then, after that, now we came up with the draft. But there were people who were opposing the structures that we are trying to introduce, particularly one, devolution. Devolution was opposed very seriously by the national government here. They don't want to let power go. But this devolution, I came about it when I was a shadow minister for local government. In those days, in parliament, you had the minister and you had the shadow in the opposition. So the shadow minister of local government. In that capacity, I went around the world. I went to Britain and looked at how their local government was working. England is a unitary system. Wales, they have a Wales Assembly. It's a devolved system. Scotland is a federal system. In Japan, they have a devolution system that worked very well. And that's the model that impressed me. And that is what we brought here. And we had 14 regions in the devolved system. But those who are at the center did not like it. They did not like devolution, and also did not like the structure of the executive. That's why after we passed it in Bomas, they went to court and stopped the commission from presenting it to Parliament. And then they took it to Kilifi, bastardized it, the senator from Kilifi here. Bastardized it. And then what they brought here, tulikataa. Tunambia yule msichana mrembo tulitoka naye kule Bomas mlipeleka wapi? Yeye mmeleta yule ambaye msanajisi mkambukiza ukimwi. Mnaleta hapa hatutaki. Sasa so you post it. That's where bananas and the oranges emerged. And in the end, when we went to the referendum, we defeated that draft constitution. Yeah. So we did not have the constitution. We went for elections, divided, and you guys now are old enough to have been there in 2007, 2008. You saw what happened in this country. You saw what happened, what they did. And of course they were determined not to have us take power. And the chairman of the Electoral Commission was moved at a gunpoint to go and swear my opponent, whom had defeated hands down. Now we went on, and eventually in that arrangement we insisted that we must have a new constitution. We ended up with this kind of new constitution. Most important feature here is devolution. But because they did not want devolution, they decided to make them so tiny, small, so that they can be controlled from the center. From 14 that we had at the regional bombers, they ended up with now 47 counties. You see? South Africa has only 9 provinces, a devolved system. Nigeria has got 35 states. But Nigeria's population is over 200 million people, and they're double the size of Kenya. But their units are much bigger. Here they wanted them to be very small. Now they even want to make them smaller. You heard what they were saying then in boomers. So now, let me get to the point. The democracy can only be strong if institutions are strong. We have 3 arms of this government in our current constitution: the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature. All these, they are interdependent, but each one of them has got a specific role to play. The legislature is mandated by the Constitution to make laws. Then, and also to oversight the executive. The executive uses the laws which have come from the legislature to govern the country. And then there's judiciary that ensures that in the implementation, the executive does not overreach itself or violate the constitution or the laws. That is the work of the executive, of the judiciary. So for democracy to thrive in a country, the legislature must be strong and independent. So a strong, independent legislature. Secondly, you must have also a truly independent judiciary that is not subservient to the executive. Because the executive has the power. The executive is the one that has the power to raise resources. They're the ones who tax the people. And they tax the people in order to provide services. But the voice of the people comes through the legislature. Because they're the ones who are with the people on the ground. They're the ones who represent the people on the ground. And we know how the people feel. They know, the ones who know where the shoe is pinching. So, now, what are the problems we are having in Kenya today? How is democracy under siege today? What are the threats to our democracy? And the threat to our democracy is that there's no respect or fidelity to the Constitution of 2010. Those who have been tasked to implement it are those who do not believe in it. Those who are right now there were the ones who are opposing that Constitution in the referendum of 2010. Therefore, they want basically to take this country back to where we came from. If you look at what's happening. Number one, legislature. Legislature is under serious threat. By the results of last elections of 2022, last year, when the results were announced in the National Assembly, the Azimio coalition had 172 seats. The Kenya Kwanza coalition had 165 seats. The majority coalition was one who should be the leader of majority in parliament, is Mr. Opiyo Wandayi of Azimio. But they started immediately when the results were announced to start poaching. Immediately even before being sworn in, they had already bought a party which was an affiliate of Azimio called UDM. Then the other one called PA. Another one called Maendeleo Chap Chap. Crossed the floor to join the other side, making therefore Kenya Kwanza now have a majority. And that's how they managed to win the speaker elections. And they now imposed their person as a speaker of the National Assembly. Those, if the judiciary was right, those elections should have been nullified. Because those people who had moved, they were elected in Azimio, should not have been allowed to participate in the elections. Because they had defected. And under our laws, if you move from a party that sponsored you to elections, you are required to resign or lose your seat and go for a by-election. That has not happened. So now Kenya Kwanza is enjoying artificial majority in parliament. Then they went on again to now raid the other parties. You've seen members of ODM going to State House announcing that they are going to work with this Kenya Kwanza government. You are elected on an ODM ticket. If you want to work with Kenya Kwanza, resign, go back for a by-election and be re-elected and come back. Then they raided now our other new party, Jubilee. Several members of Jubilee announced that they are now going to work with Kenya Kwanza. They are moving away from Azimio coalition without following the process that is provided for in law. You cannot just announce Azimio is a coalition, there's an agreement. If you want to remove, you must follow the process. Because the leadership of Jubilee is very much still in Azimio. But members of Jubilee Party who are elected in Jubilee Party, they have Azimio, are now sitting on the other side of the house. So now you see, Parliament has completely been compromised. They are enjoying an artificial majority in Parliament. And now they can pass all the laws that they want. Bills are published, they're taken to State House, members are called there, and they're told you must pass this bill as it is. When it comes to the House, there's even no debate. The Speaker normally should move a procedural motion to reduce the time that is allowed to members. In the old days when we were in that parliament, you could speak for the whole day on a bill. There was no time limitation. And continue again the following day. Only when the time was closing near is when either you call the mover to reply or you reduce the time. But you cannot reduce the time below 15 minutes. Usually it used to be 20 minutes. Now they say you have only 5 minutes to speak on a bill. What can you say in 5 minutes on a bill? And when you start speaking, after 3 minutes, the first light is flashing. After 5 minutes, the red light. They've removed the speaker from you. So you can't continue talking. So this parliament is useless. It's just a rubber stamp. And you have a speaker who is once a speaker is elected, first, if he was a member or a leader of a political party, he must resign from that political party. And he must be neutral. You have a case here where speakers are attending political rallies, speaking on issues which are before Parliament. themselves, they are already taken aside on an issue which is before him as a speaker. What kind of parliament is that? What kind of parliament is that? A speaker is not supposed to take sides. A speaker is supposed to be somebody who is neutral. And you have a speaker who every weekend is accompanying members of parliament on Harambes. He's the one giving the member money for Harambes, and he's going to take them there, and he's talking there now as Kenya Kwanza, and hurling all sort of insults at Baba. But he's a speaker of a National Assembly. So the National Assembly is completely in disrepute. The speakers themselves have shown by their own actions that they are not fit to be called speakers. You have had speakers in that house who have excelled themselves. The founding speaker was called Sir Humphrey Slade. He set a standard, a bar, so high. If you go and read Slade's rulings, you see this is a speaker speaking. And several other speakers. Another one was the speaker, Kenneth Marende, a true speaker. You know, then Parliament was Parliament. Today, this Parliament is Shenzi Parliament. It's nothing. So then they also corrupt members of Parliament. Because what is happening is that Parliament has budgeted money that it does not need. There's too much money in Parliament because they actually blackmail the legislature. And therefore, you've got money to bribe members of Parliament with the trips. I'm going to send you to Ireland. You can go with your wife or your girlfriend. You can go to the United States. You can go to Australia. You can go to Germany, and so on and so forth. So MPs most of the times are in the air. Some of them change clothes at the airport. And then they come, they go to Mombasa. All the committees meetings are held in tourist hotels in Mombasa. And you can go there with your darling or your girlfriend. So there's nothing happening in the legislature here. Then you see the amendment that they bring. Some big amendments which are unconstitutional, and they are pushed and passed without any debate in this parliament. So you don't have a parliament that can oversight the executive. You don't have a parliament that can, that's one. Two, and this is what is happening today, happened in the 60s. So history is repeating itself. That's why I started by telling you the more things change, the more they remain the same. Two is now the issue of the judiciary. You see, judiciary, it's also been raided. Judiciary is now making rulings which are in favor of the executive. The executive can threaten you. You saw the senator for Busia, Okiya Mutata, challenging the finance bill in court. And he was told directly by the chief executive of the chief of the executive that you're wasting your time. I am the president of this country. You can never defeat me in court. I will defeat you. And then the Chief Justice puts together a bench which is user-friendly and makes a ruling in favor. Okay? You're saying this matter is still going on, but you say that you are removing, this had been suspended, the implementation of finance bill had been suspended. Then they say they are removing the suspension, but allowing the case to continue. So, you know, the people are being taxed already as there's a case in court. You see, that's the kind of judiciary that we have. And several others. Right now, we are going to go to Mavoko, where demolition is going on right now. and we saw the kind of brutal demolition of structures going on in Mavoko. Bulldozers are moved there and tearing those structures like pieces of paper. You guys have seen that. You see, you think that this is something like from the Wild West. It was happening right here. And the ruling was made on Friday by judiciary in Machakos. The ruling was made on Friday. On Saturday, the bulldozers were already on site, pulling down those cities. And these are people who have lived there for years. They have constructed those permanent structures, homes you have seen. Some of them have acquired loans from banks to put up those structures. Then there are schools. Children are going to school there and exams are coming. And they're being demolished. Churches are being demolished in that place. Even if you are president, and you know that because you are maybe the one who was behind this case, because he said, we now got a ruling yesterday, and we are going to remove these people. And 1,000 acres we are going to give to special economic zone. Others we are going to do affordable housing. There's housing already in that estate. It does not say anything about the people who are resident there. If you are a responsible, caring government,